past haunts us all. Whether it be a person, place, or thing, we are reluctant to let go. We call to the dead out of desperation and intrigue, searching for answers about what lies behind the shadows. We are paranormal researchers. We are Necromancers. Hello, and welcome to the Necromancer Live Show. I'm your host, Justin Brown, and this is episode 33, and we have Tony Felosi with us this evening. He seems like he is a very interesting person with a lot of interesting things to share with us tonight, so without any further ado, we'll bring him over to the show, and we'll get this show on the road. What's up, Tony?
Hey, Justin, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Good, and thanks for having me. And hello, everyone.
You're very welcome. I like to get everybody that looks like they've been doing a lot of interesting work on the show just to get to know them and support them. I think that's really important to do. I am happy to do it, and I'm looking forward to learning much more about you than I knew prior to this show.
Well, I can tell you that, as a child, kind of what got me interested in the paranormal was other children were reading Dick and Jane and stuff like that, and I was reading Greek and Roman mythology and anything historical, anything to do with the paranormal. Then, as my first paranormal experience wasn't until I was around 18, 19 years old. My father had bought a house, and they didn't tell me I'd moved back here. I'd been living with my mother, and he didn't tell me that we had otherworldly visitors. So, like, I'm in my bedroom one night. I go to bed, turn the lights off, and there's this mist that comes up. I mean, it's not solid, but it's plasma-ish looking. And being the brave young lad I was, I screeched and ran out the room. And I asked my father. I said, "Hey," I just think I saw something. He said, "Oh yeah," he said, "They don't bother you." He said, "Sometimes they'll open the drawers and you'll hear footsteps and things." He said, but don't worry about it." And I said, "Well, that would have been nice to know, before I lost 5 years off my life." So, but that got me very, very interested in the paranormal and what made these type of manifestations.
Right. What's interesting is the last guest last Wednesday started off telling me his first paranormal experience in the exact same way you did. He's seen a mist. And that's cool. I think that's not often reported to me. People seeing mist, come to them in the room while they're sleeping. And I think that's interesting that both you and Jason Bland experienced that. Was there any other phenomena associated with it? Was there any sounds, any feelings with the mist?
Obviously the room got colder. But that was the last time that I saw the mist. But I did hear the footsteps, and it would pull out drawers. You would hear drawers open and close. You hear the doors open and close. You go out and everything would be fine. But you would, physically, you just about could feel the vibration from the doors opening and closing, and you'd hear the footsteps and no one be there. So that went on until I moved out, and you never really get used to it, but you just kind of accepted it. But and there was one hot spot in the house that was a closet area in my father's bedroom, and sometimes it would sound like just somebody in there, just two people wrestling. There's a lot of bangs, a lot of slaps, and what I really should probably do is go back and try to look at the history of the house. We go back in the deed, go to the deed room and start seeing who, maybe try to track that down. I don't think the current owners would let me in to investigate, but it'd probably be something, just for my edification.
All right. How old again were you again when you experienced this?
1819.
18, 19. Okay.
Yeah.
When you moved, did you experience anything else in the other places that you lived?
Yes, there was a house that, see, Harlan County, there's a lot of Harlan County that's built on Indian burial grounds. And, there's a lot of history, a lot of, there's been people in here a lot longer than what the history books will tell you. The same thing, footsteps, didn't see any mist, but footsteps, and actually had my name called. It's probably in 2002, 2004, right before I got into the paranormal really seriously. But it was so clear that I answered. I thought that someone had came in. One of my buddies came in, and I was downstairs, and they were, hey, we're here. I answered them, went up the stairs, not a soul.
Seems to be the case quite often. Okay, so you got into the what's causing the footsteps, what's causing the mist, what got you actually investigating and do the field reserve? What kind of got you started into doing that?
Well, it's kind of cliche, but I'd always been interested, like I said, in the paranormal. Whenever Ghost Hunters first came on, I really didn't watch it. And there happened to be a marathon on one Sunday, and I said, what the heck? And I started watching. I got pretty interested. I got very interested in the equipment that they were running. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, hey, I can do this. So I started, kind of mimicking what they had and learning how to use it, and it kind of took off from there. And I started doing small investigations, and then as my equipment got better, I would start catching better and better EVPs. The photographs. I've got took thousands of photographs, and I might have 4 or 5 actual paranormal photograph, what you could say is actual entities. But from there, I just kind of, it morphed into, I do a lot of work with ITC. That's probably, audio and things. If I have a specialty, that would be it.
So what did you learn the ITC from the shows, or where did that come from?
The ITC, I started out with, like everyone else did, just with a Sony recorder, just Olympus or something like that, catching a few EVPs. Then I discovered the PSB-7, and caught a few EVPs with the 7. But you have a lot of popcorn effect. You have a lot of stuff with it. And I said, there's better, ways to catch clear EVP. So I, kept working with it. And then, and as I got better with my audio programs, I was able to work with that and kind of negate that issue. And what really helped me with my ITC research is we were shooting a film in Harlan last year, the Manzo Shepherd story. Chris Maggard came in, did an excellent job on the film. And Matthew Jackson and Mike Colwell from Paraholics were in. And, Matt Jackson's my go-to guy in ITC, in the ITC world. I mean, if I have questions, I ask Matt. He's got tons of experience. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about it, and he says, well, hey, try this box, or try this because the sweep rate's smoother and you don't get all the noise, and you got this. So Matt ended up selling me a Steve's box, Steve Holte, and a radio spectre, which I predominantly use the Steve's box, now, because whatever Steve Holte did to that thing, however he tuned it, I'm catching some phenomenal EVPs with it. That's kind of that's kind of my evolution into the ITC. But, beyond that, what I think in ITC is, when the PSBs first came out, people were saying, oh, they're using bits and pieces of songs to give you a message, to tell you something. That's there's no way. I mean, it's the white. I believe it's the white noise and the frequency in the white noise that they use to manifest their voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's the frequency inside the white noise. Is my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate on how spirits or entities, like for a better term, use the spirit box or the device to actually speak through it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of white noise research myself, and I'm curious if you do just any white noise research at all, where you just use white noise.
Yes, we have. Recently, uh, I partnered with a gentleman named Thomas Markham, and he has the crypto crew, and we do the paranormal. Harlan County Paranormal does the paranormal investigations, and we kind of morphed everything together. So uh, Thomas had a white noise generator, a little white noise deal, and we started using it, and we actually caught EVPs, a few EVPs, just using white noise.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've done my very first validated EVP was using white noise right out of a shack hack. So I believe, just like you do, that they're not modulating radio frequencies or using
No,
bits. They're actually modulating white noise frequency, since it's
correct.
all the frequencies that you could possibly imagine in an audio spectrum. They just take from it what they need and use.
Exactly. I mean, that's the way that I say it. That's been my experience so far.
Yeah, now that we're on the subject, there's a few things that we spoke of before we went live to kind of help test these theories. One of the theories is, does the entities manipulate it internally or externally? Okay, and there's this thing that I do is a setup. I use a 4-channel PCM recorder like a Zoom H4 or Tascam D040, and I'll get two SB7s because they're the easiest to do to sync up. And I'll start them all
Yeah.
both on FM or AM, whatever I'm sweeping, and I'll
All
sync
right.
them at the same channel, and it'll let you start at the same channel at the same rate, and I'll sync them exactly the same, and they'll run them into the recorder. And what I'll do is, once I record each one, I will cross-check and see if there's something different on one and the other, because they're supposed to be the exact same. But if one of them's manipulated, you can prove the manipulation, because they're supposed to be. It's physically impossible for them to be different if they're right next to each other. So if in one instance you get something that's an anomaly, then that's one way to prove it internally. Now, the external setup is you have to use an FM or AM transmitter. And those, they're commonly used in Halloween props, where you get a microphone and you speak into it and you transmit it somewhere to a prop, and it just, transmits your voice to it. Well, you can hook up your spirit box to that thing, and you can record whatever comes out of the box before it's transmitted, and then record whatever comes out of the box or the other end after it's transmitted, and cross-check those. And if you get a modulation between the transmitter and receiver, you can therefore infer that they modulated the actual frequency in the air between the transmitter and receiver, because both ways are possible, I believe. And I think
That's
those
very interesting.
it is very interesting. And of course, there's also, if you're friends with Matt Jackson, he uses the Geo Box a lot, and they use different methods
Yeah.
to let spirits modulate. Do you ever use the Geo Box?
No, no, I have not. Been with Matt when he used the geobox when we did the investigation, the old Harlan County Jail. That's is a but no, I have not personally used a geobox.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that you tried to do? Like, do you use standard infrared camera equipment? Do you use
Yeah.
stuff like REM pods? What other stuff that you use to try to
Well,
collect data?
whenever we go, usually the standard stuff, we'll use the millimeter and a tri-field uh, meter. I like don't have very much. I have K2s, but I really don't put a lot of stock in K2s because you can get there's false positives. They're too easy to, if you have emergency services that are close by or something. I'm always afraid you're going to get some sort of false positive with the K2, but they're okay to run a baseline if you're looking for some bleed out of a wall, some sort of electrical bleed out of a wall. But usually that's the standard setup, and then basically I'll use Sony cameras with IR on them. That's really the setup. I try to keep it simple. I try to keep it simple and as clean as I can. But as far as the experiments, I have used an oscillator to charge areas before we investigate with frequency, with sound and vibration. I mean, I'm a big believer in sound and vibration creates energy. And I think that the entities can use that to help manifest. And one of the things I used to do, and I had decent results out of it, is I would use a bigger set of speakers. And, if you're in a building, especially it's got a lot of stone in it or metal, in the jails, it works real well because I would put it against, maybe a place that had the concrete, and then put another one against the bars. And then, in essence, I was trying to charge the whole area, the building, or the upstairs in this instance. And, run it maybe 20 minutes, something like that, turn it off, and then run EVP sessions.
That's great, man. I've done very similar things with really good results at times. It's definitely rare when you get something, but it seems to be connected to some types of voice phenomena like EVP. Is there a certain frequency that you use? I know you said you oscillate, so you might go back and forth between frequencies.
I've had good luck out of the higher frequencies, it seems like, but then I have had some success out of the lower frequency because you get more of the vibration with the lower frequency. It seems like. But it varies. But I would say if I had to pick one, I would say the higher frequency.
Mm-hmm. And you let it run for like 10, 20 minutes, and then you just do
Yes.
like an EVP session to start with?
Correct.
That's interesting. Is there, what do you think the success rate versus just not doing any of that? Do you think that you catch more doing that?
I think that if you hit the sweet spots, that you catch more because you give them more energy to pull from. But I really am just getting into logging on some of the data. Because we'll just use 528 hertz for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll say tonight's experiment's 528 hertz times 10 minutes. Ran 10-minute EVP session, 0 EVPs or 5 EVPs or whatever the thing is. Okay, so I want to try to get more into that. At first I was just playing with it to see if it would work. Right. Now I'm going back and I really want to get down and log, get meticulous as I can be with the data before I can really say, one way or the other. I hate to throw a whole lot out there, but I think that if I had to put a number on it, I would say by 50%, 40-50% if you're doing it right. If you hit the sweet spot, you get lots more activity.
So it sounds like you're very much in the research phase too, which is really good that you're logging, you're trying different frequencies and seeing what works and what doesn't. And that's going to take a while.
Yeah, a long while.
It may take years.
But yes. But one thing that I can tell you from my experience, I don't know if you ran into this. Okay, if you got the sweet spot, you're going to get really great activity. Then if you've got it maybe on, we'll say 350 hertz, I'm just throwing numbers out there, for comparison. you might run them. You might not get anything. It's like you like flip the switch off. I mean, you get zero. I don't know whether that just shuts them down, runs them out, or what. But there are every frequency does not work.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely you could the whole thing can backfire on you for sure. But that's if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research.
Right. Right.
But that's cool. Let the viewers know like where are the places you like to go and where are the places you like to return to. That's your favorite and the most active places that you go. And it could be just the ones that you like the history, the architecture as well.
Yes. We're really big. With the crypto file, we're filming a series, docu series, the crypto file series. It's on Amazon Prime right now, and what we focus on is primarily historical locations that have some sort of activity there. I really love the history. I love the local history and presenting it and getting it out to the world. We just recently, the old Harlan County Jail is probably one of the most active places I've ever been. Whenever it's on, it's on. Been lots of murders there. It was a hub whenever they had the mine wars. If they were arrested, they came through that jail. That's where they were kept. If there's several murders in the courtroom, several murders in the jails, several suicides over the years. So that's a very active location. Another location that I like theaters. I'm starting to really like old movie theaters. The reason I do is well, we just completed one last week that we got some phenomenal evidence out of. They seem to capture and hold very positive energy. There's everything out there doesn't have to be a murder, suicide, something like that, something violent. The energy can be energy can be positive, and people can if they really enjoyed that place in life, or they spent a big portion of their life there and they were happy, then I've definitely have evidence that they come back to those places.
Here's not to interrupt you. Here's a theory that you may or may not have thought of. Theaters play music, and the sound
Yes.
may have
Yes.
something to do, the bombardment of all the frequencies and sound and just the psychokinetics from everybody, not only watching it and enjoying it, but the ones that are, you know, doing the shows for these people. There's so much dynamic and so much energy being transferred back and forth in those places. I do feel that you're right, that has something to do with, how active those places can be.
My goodness, I forget the name, the technical name, but where they put the media on the plates and they vibrate it at a certain hertz, and it does a geometric pattern.
Yes.
Um, I think that everything is related back to sound and vibration. When we find, and what's really interesting about that with sound and vibration, we'll say that I'll just use the 528 hertz again. We'll say that we put our media out and we vibrate it, we turn it on 528. Well, it'll make a certain geometric shape. Well, then we clean it off, put more media on, 528, it makes the exact same geometric shape. So when we start seeing patterns like that, you have to ask yourself, when I'm seeing, there has to be something in there that once we figure out, that we'll definitely be able to use to help, like with the oscillators and the other sound producing devices. When we figure out the frequency plus minus 10% that they really like, we can structure our equipment, to more to that, and I think we're going to get some really, really good results in the future.
I agree. I think I definitely agree with sound being like the key to understanding frequency and the phenomena that is tied to such things. According to Google, and I refer to this a lot because it's hard to remember what the different hertz mean, but 528 hertz is a frequency that is central to the musical matrix of creation. More than any sound previously discovered, the love frequency resonates at the heart of everything. So a lot of early on, and probably still to this day, a lot of musical composers tune their instruments to 528 hertz, and it's interesting that that you're doing that research, because I'm doing the exact same stuff right now, a little bit more, and hopefully that pans out. Hopefully there's something come out of that kind of research. I'm gonna
I
I'm gonna
think
pull
that
up the geometry here so people can see real quick. I'm showing the viewers the geometrical shape for 528 hertz real quick, Tony, since you brought it up.
cool.
It's pretty beautiful.
Yes, yes. And something else, Justin, that I've thought about is, you know, the they don't call it sacred geometry for nothing. And once we learn to unlock these things, that's whenever we're really going to go light years ahead in this field.
Yeah, it may be just as simple as that. It may be something as simple as the Fibonacci sequence. It may be something, a lot more simple than we think it is. But,
Yeah.
you know, we have to do the research and the legwork to see. And we were talking before the show started that we need a standardized method of acquiring this data and reporting it to somebody who can, keep the integrity of it intact and, make sense of it all. Hopefully,
I
there's
think
some
what,
organizations out there that's going to step up and do that.
yeah, the more that we standardize things, and the whenever we have these set of standards, okay, we call up this evidence using these standards, and everybody adheres to them, then we get some really, really good data coming in.
That's right. What we need to do is just do shows like this and just keep telling people, hey, this is what I do. What do you do? Have you tried this? Would you mind trying this? And, get some data for, this point in time to that point in time, and tell me what you get. Just send me all the data and I'll just log it and, cross check it with mine. I definitely would be interested in doing that for you if you would like.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. I will definitely get to work on that and send that to you just so you can have it. And hopefully it helps.
Well, I like learning from. There's a lot of great, like I said before, there's a lot of great people in the field right now, and I've been doing it, seriously about 12 years. But I mean, the more I learn, the more I know, the less I know, so to speak. I know there's just so much more to learn, and I try to learn from everybody.
That's right. That's the best way to do it. And you're just going to get better and quicker than a lot of people who try to compete and try to separate themselves from everybody and not learn what
You know,
it is to learn out there. I'm also interested in some of the cryptozoology research that you do. You're in a good area. There's a lot of Bigfoot sightings and stories and legends. Go into that a little bit if you don't mind.
Well, that's more of my partner's Thomas Markham's bailiwick. He is one of the foremost Bigfoot researchers, cryptozoology people in this part of the country. But I'm learning a lot from Thomas. There are several Bigfoot sightings in Harlan County and in surrounding areas. Thomas has some really good tracks, castings from Bigfoot. When I first started out, I guess I was kind of a little bit skeptical until I started seeing these tracks and the castings and talking to Thomas and what's really amazing about it is they actually, from what I understand, they'll communicate. They're very intelligent, and that, well, obviously they have to be to not be seen as much as they are, but. Stick structures. I've learned a lot about we find a lot of stick structures around here, tree breaks, tracks. Thomas has he's actually saw Squatch 3 or 4 times here, maybe more.
It's got to be pretty crazy to see something like that. I've definitely had people on the show that's had sightings, and they tell you that they throw rocks at you, that they knock and bang and have calls and all this type of stuff, and it's almost like a conspiracy when it comes to the Bigfoot, because you would think that they would be in the fossil record, more than so than they are, instead of the Gigantopithecus or whatever it's called.
Right. Gigantic.
So, I mean, what's your theory on why they're so hard to find and the lack of physical evidence?
That will be more of a Thomas question, but I think that it's like bears. We're covered up in bears with bears in southeast Kentucky, and very rarely will you find bear skulls or bear bones.
Mm-hmm.
And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those things. And I would say, a lot of it has to do with obviously the scavengers. Then you have the mice and other things that will eat the bones, or tear off the bone, things like that. Because as many animals that die in the woods, deer, bear, squirrel. I mean, when you go out, it's not like a big boneyard. You don't hardly see any of that stuff. So I don't find it really highly unusual that you're not finding Bigfoot fingers, But I will tell you this: have you ever heard of the giants of the Ohio Valley?
Vaguely.
Where they build megalithic structures, and they were an advanced race that that astrology and all that. Well, they were allegedly a race of giants, and there is a lot of documentation of that race of giants in early writings. When they were in Pennsylvania and Ohio and places, they would find the mounds, and they would take the mounds down to use for field or whatever, and they would find these giant skeletons, and they would end up at back then I don't know what they did with them, but in the 18th century the Smithsonian started gathering them up and never to be seen again. Mm-hmm. Now the reason I switched from Bigfoot to giants is I've actually interviewed 3 people in Harlan County, that very reputable, that have saw, and you'd ask about bones, that have seen remnants of skulls and jawbones. Huge. And I'm going to do a follow-up interview Monday evening with a lady that whenever she was a small child, her dad was, she saw one of her dad's friends, he was a park ranger. And this guy, dug Indian artifacts and things, and he had found these large bones, jawbone. So she said that her dad was 6'2" or 6'4", was a big fella, and that whenever he held up the jawbone to his face, she said it was like a full face motorcycle helmet covering the bottom part of his skull. Hmm. And so I'm, that's just kind of a side note, because we anything interesting, I'm about it. It doesn't just have to be ghost. It's anything interesting or historical.
Right, I'm the same way. If it's mysterious, and if it has some type of strange unknown nature about it, I'm curious about it. Especially like lost civilizations. Yes. Space exploration, all kinds of stuff. I eat it up. I'm pretty nerdy when it comes to that thing, and I was one of the very few in my class to ace mythology. Some of the valedictorians even had had problems, retaining the knowledge from that stuff, and I was already knowledgeable about it because I played Dungeons and Dragons like a nerd, and I knew it all already, so I didn't even have to learn. So I love all that stuff as well, and it's deeply interesting to me. And the reason why is all that stuff that we used to tell stories about and believe in says something about who we are, and there may even be some type of truth that you can.
Yes, but that's the basis in fact. Yes. Have you ever? I know you've probably never heard of it. It's called the petroglyph. It's in Manchester, Kentucky. It's some ancient writings on a stone that they found during it slid off during some road construction, and they actually got it, preserved it, and some of this alphabet goes back to first century Greek and two or three other languages, and I'm trying to track it. I'm going to go over and track it down. There's supposed to be another stone very similar to it in a county that's not too far away. So I'm gonna go check out the redbird petroglyph and do my photographs and things like that. And there's a gentleman that done, I forget his name right off, but I think he's passed. But we'll try to find his wife or his son and try to get a hold of some of his research, maybe run copies of it. He had a video or two out, and I've got those. But I'm going to compare that to, if I can find this. There's a historian, a local historian, that has allegedly saw this other stone. So I'm going to try to see if I can find this stone this summer and compare the alphabet, see if there's similarities in there, or even if this thing even really exists. But now, you'd asked about Bigfoot bones. Back in the 60s, in Bell County, which adjoins Harlan County, there was a hunter, and he had come up on a ridge before daylight, and he was resting. He sat down on what he thought was a blowdown, a bunch of branches and limbs and things. And whenever it got daylight, he looked down and he saw that he was sitting on a pile of bones. Now, there was a Dr. Gibbons, I believe was his name, ended up with the bones. And then I think the Smithsonian ended up with, but anyways, there was some very well documented proof about that. They put the skeletons together. They didn't have any skulls because they think that the way that they came down and caught against a tree, that the skulls being around probably rolled on down, and they couldn't find any. But this race of there was like 4 complete skeletons or 5, and the femurs on these skeletons were 2.5 times the diameter of a modern man. But this race of people were only about 4.5 to 5 feet tall. Mm. So I mean, that's documented. We have that in that here. I mean, also. So who knows? Maybe they were midget Bigfoot, but they were definitely a different race of somebody, of something. And the author that wrote the book, it was one of the chapters in his book, is still alive, and I'm going to try to get with him. He's been ill. I'm going to try to get with him here in the next couple of months and sit down and delve more into that story also.
That's interesting. Yeah, right around here where we live, I know you're not too far from me. I'm in the southern Ohio Valley. There is so much history and so much, that we probably don't even know. And that's not even, known to any historian in the area. But if you take the history with the Native Americans, if you take the terrain, if you take all the history that we know that's recently happened in the last few hundred years, just by itself, the Ohio River, it runs through the heart of probably the most active region in the U.S. Do you believe that you live right in the heart of the most active region in the United States?
Yes. Harlan County, do you ever look at USGS maps, the magnetic anomaly maps?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of the hot spots that I'm going to correlate with the USGS magnetic anomaly maps. Mm-hmm. So the geology, I think your geology, where you have limestone, sandstone, we have a lot of water here, a lot of underground rivers, a lot of just above ground rivers and then underground rivers and cave systems. So basically, we're sitting on a big battery, mm-hmm. is the way that I'm looking at it. So I think that lends itself to paranormal activity.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring up for the viewers a map of what you just mentioned, the USGS. And if you look at this map, guys, right here is Ohio and Kentucky, and just you can see of all the nice little magnetic, readings that are just concentrated in these areas. Right here, like the Ohio River comes right down through here, and it's just more so here than it is, like, say, over here, and especially more concentrated. So I find that very interesting.
Yes, I mean, I started, kind of doing a comparison a couple years ago, and I can tell you, that uh, on this the mountain shall remain nameless because I'm still investigating it. But in the middle of um, the magnetic anomaly map shows a real hot spot in a certain section of this mountain. So I said, what the heck? So I go up on this ridge. We drive probably 4 or 5 miles at this ridge to where we'll try to get as close as I can to where I think that this is. I start catching EVPs, and there's nothing around for miles. For
Mm-hmm.
miles. Now, that's not to say that back in the day there weren't, some settlements or some families that lived there or something. But I've caught actual EVPs where there wasn't nothing, and I had an experience that an entity come up and whispered in my ear. I mean, literally, I said, "This just did not happen." Because no matter how long you've done this, whenever they talk directly into your ear or something,
Mm-hmm.
that still is kind of unnerving just for a second. You go,
Oh
did that
yeah,
really just happen?
it breaks the rational part of your brain. Like, that's not supposed to happen. It's it's
so,
it's still fascinating to this day. It never gets old, and I agree with you. It's something.
but I think there's a definite correlation between the magnetic anomalies, your geology, things of that nature that contribute to why certain areas are hot and some are not.
Right, right. When did you want to show these folks that are watching right now your trailer?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was wondering when you would wanted to show your trailer.
Let's go ahead. Let's show one of the trailers. Let's show the one for Portal 31. This is a trailer that the third in the Crypto Files installment on our docuseries. And what we're doing is hitting the historical locations, and we're really getting into the history and some of the activity at these historical locations. And this was filmed by my partner, Thomas Markham of the Crypto Crew. Thomas does a fantastic job with the film and helping in the investigations. And this one should be out on Amazon. We have two out on Amazon Prime right now. Missing the Dennis Martin story, and In Prison Spirits. In Prison Spirits is getting a lot of view minutes right now. So guys, go check it out if you want. It's really good. But this one is the Ghost of Portal 31. This mines was opened in 1917 in Harlan County, Kentucky. Or I'm sorry, in Lynch, Kentucky, in Harlan County. And at one time, Lynch had his small mining community, but it had 10,000 people in this really small area. And I mean, it just all this diversity from Eastern Europe and Italy and all over. I mean, I think there was like Poland, Czechoslovakia, all those places. At one time, there was like 20-something or 30-something nationalities, I think, that they said were living in Lynch, Kentucky.
Wow.
It's really small. Yeah.
All right,
And so,
I'll go ahead and cue it up if you would like me to.
all right, that'd be great.
All right, here we go.
Portal 31 opened up in November of 1917. The mine was open approximately 46, 47 years.
Over 2,000 men working in there, picks and shovel days, and mules, and the dynamite.
Thought I have seen faint lights back in the back when there's definitely no lights.
Okay, I just had a light, and now it's gone.
And then there was this little red light. This was a unique town and a unique community back then. They were proud people. They were proud of who they were, where they came from, and who they were going to be as Americans.
Alrighty, that sounds really, really interesting, and I urge everyone to go check that out as soon as possible.
It should be up on Amazon Prime in the next 3 or 4 days. But in Prison Spirits, it's already up, and so is the Dennis Martin story. So they can go watch In Prison Spirits and Dennis Martin while they're waiting on Portal 31.
That's right. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of links in the description of this video, and Tony's there's a YouTube channel that's not really associated with that, but the links for the Amazon documentary are on here, and definitely check out Tony Felosi on Facebook, because he will give you updates for all this stuff and point you in the right directions to watch all this content that he's releasing.
Right, and come to our other website, the Crypto Crew, and check out the Crypto Watch, which is our YouTube channel.
That's right. That's actually in the card. So if you go, let's see, in this upper corner right here, let's see if I'm pointing right there, you will see a little eye with a circle in it. If you click on that, that'll take you right to his YouTube channel. So it's kind of convenient if you want to do that. But I definitely support everything that Tony's doing. I know how hard and expensive it is to travel these places, to do the research, to put these films together, to try to get, your work out there is, out of your own pocket is very, very difficult. And that's why I like, supporting independent filmmakers and people like yourself, because we need all the help we can get.
Absolutely. And and it's just not. I want to throw something out there. It's a team effort. It's just not me and Thomas. We have some really good people with us. We have a lady, our photographer Belinda Taylor's been with us a long time. Lisa Peters has been with us a long time. Does a really great job. We have some guest investigators that we use from time to time. We just brought on a researcher, Miss Jennifer Williams. She does a fantastic job with the research, and in turn helps Thomas and I do our jobs better. So I want to really give a shout out to the team, because without them, we couldn't do near as well as we do.
That's great. I'm glad that you have a supportive team and a lot of people around you to help you, do all this work that you're doing, and I think that's great. Is there anything else that you would like to let us know about, anything you want to plug or anything that you want to promote?
Yeah, the what we're working on now is the Benham Theater. It's going to be a fantastic episode. We caught some very, very unusual anomalies there, and I'll give just a little bit of a spoiler. My day job, I work for county government, and I used to do a lot of risk management, and part of my duties would be go to different buildings. We either were helping to fund, or we were doing, and do photographs of the interiors, exteriors for insurance purposes. Well, being a paranormal investigator, I said, well, since I'm here, let's just see if there's any, if I catch an EVP or something. So I was going through the bottom of the theater, and just doing my thing with the camera. Didn't catch any EVPs that time, but whenever I got back and uploaded the digital photographs, there was a couple of anomalies. I mean, just a man in costume. Okay, that was like 7 years ago. So we're and so we go back and we catch some EVPs that actually name this gentleman. That's one of the gentlemen that is there, that wants to be there. And I won't say much more, but it's going to be, that one piece is going to be super interesting, besides some of the unbelievable light anomalies that we caught. I mean, it's just crazy. It was crazy.
All right. Is anything else before we come to a close? I know there's a few things more that I would like to ask and to wrap up the show, but I want to make sure that you get everything out there.
That's it. Just go ahead and shoot. What?
All right, Tony. What do you see? I know we talked about it a little bit before the show. Where do you see the paranormal going? What do you think we need to do better to, get the paranormal field in the place where it needs to be, where it's more credible, where the scientific community and the mainstream community will actually take a look at it without so much skepticism and so much, how should we say, disbelief and biased opinion?
I think standardization of how that we run certain things, like maybe the EVP sessions, also the more work with the frequency, measuring the frequencies, so we'll have hard data, say, okay, whenever we're catching EVPs, the frequency range in the room, or we're picking this up, and we'll throw 528 out there again. It seems that this is, 70% of the time, this shows up and it shouldn't be there, or there's a spike in some sort of the EMF or static. Now, one thing I like to hit on is I think that one thing that we need to start doing is measuring static electricity more than what we do. Because if you'll notice that, they do produce EMF whenever they try to manifest. But, whenever your hair's standing up on your arms and you wave your hand around, you can feel the static electricity. You can put your EMF meter through it. It don't measure, you're not getting jacked. Okay, we need something that measures that spike, because that is, I think they use more than one type of energy to manifest. So why are we so stuck on EMF? We need to be measuring, EMF. We need to be measuring static. We need to be measuring magnetic. We need to be all these things, and that will, I think, give us more. Once we input the data, it'll give us a graph, so to speak, to look at.
Right, and to add to that, I also log barometric pressure, temperature. I'll go through and definitely log the phase of the moon, the activity that the sun is giving off as far as, radiation. There's so many, little things that you can log that may or may not have something to do with the paranormal phenomena we experience or that is reported. But until we do those things and we do it well, we're really not going to appease the scientific community that we're actually doing research. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree. Now, let me pick your brain on static electricity. What are your thoughts on the static electricity?
Well, static electricity is interesting. I do believe that a lot of the sensations on the skin are static. It's very confusing because there's psychosomatic reactions that you can have to make your hair stand up on end. But if there's no psychosomatic reaction happening, but you get that sensation anyway, like the spider web feeling, or just feeling that surface tingling sensation, there needs to be much better research done in that area, because I believe that is one of the most common things that people feel, and they really don't need to be sensitive to it.
And also, I don't mean to interrupt, but okay, we'll say that we're here and we're facing this direction, and you kind of turn and there's a spot of static electricity here, and there's not here, you know. So there's something happening right here, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
You know, we'll say that you're not under fluorescent lighting. I mean, you know, we'll say that we've done our job, and we're not standing under a transformer or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to have a piece of equipment that actually can measure or give an alarm. And I think the Periscope is doing some of this.
Periscope, Paranologies definitely has a static field detector, and a REM pod can actually detect static fields.
Right. But I'm going to especially here in the next little bit is focus a lot of my stuff toward the static fields and the EMF.
Yeah, we should be doing everything that we can think of, and the static fields is definitely interesting to me because I do use the REM pod just enough to make sure that if I feel something and if that goes off, or if someone reports activity in the area, what I also will do is I'll take a radio and just put it on an AM band with no RF frequencies coming in, and I'll see if I'll get like any kind of interference on an AM band. And sometimes I'll get a hit on the radio where it sounds like a crack or interference, and I'll get a REM pod hit.
Yes.
And I think those things are correlated because when I use a spirit box, I tend to use AM more because it's more easily modulated.
I do too.
But there's a lot of theories out there that we can get together on and take notes and compare notes and everything, but we're reaching the end, unfortunately. The hour goes quick. Tony, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You've been an awesome guest, and I love all of your ideas and what you bring to the paranormal field. It's a breath of fresh air, to be honest, that there's people like you out there trying to do what they can do to figure out what the heck is going on, to appease skeptics, the scientific community, not relying on faith alone. You want to go out there and try to find answers, and I really admire that.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure. I've learned a lot. Folks like yourself, I've watched a lot of your material, and so like I said, you can learn from everyone. I think everybody needs to study, to devote sometime through the week to step outside of what they're doing and look at what some reputable people are doing and how it maybe can enhance their paranormal research.
Absolutely. Try not to compete. Try to take a look at somebody, learn from them, leave the ego at the door, and work together, because I think that's the only way we're going to actually make progress. I should say that's the fastest way we're going to make progress.
That's the fastest way we're going to make progress. I agree completely.
All right, folks. I'm going to leave it there. Tony Felosi, check out all the links in the description. Check out his documentary on Amazon. Check out his YouTube channel at Crypto Watch and follow him on Facebook. All the links are in the description. I'm going to let you go, Tony. You have a good night, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right, there you go, folks. Definitely check out Tony. He is an awesome guy, and I support him 100%. And I love it when you have a lot in common with the guests and are able to have a conversation that you feel like you can agree with them and learn from them. So that is why I do this. So, guys, thanks again for tuning in each and every week. Thanks, Scotty, for super chatting the $15. That's freaking awesome. We're going to go into the social screen here real quick and let you guys know about Patreon again if you haven't heard about Patreon. If you want to support Necromancer and the field research we do in Interface Death, you can go to patreon.com/support Interface Death and do so. You can get rewards for pledging $1 a month or more. There's tiers that you can check out. So if you're interested in doing that, check that out. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Necromancer Live Show. And if you want to follow what's going on with Interface Death, you can always go to interfacedeath.net or check out our Facebook page and our Instagram. All the Patreons are shouted out at the end of the show. We got Matt Benton, Clay Borman, and Matthew Jackson still going strong. They are actually pledging quite a bit, and it's helping me out a lot. It's really wanting me to just try harder and provide more content for you guys. So if you want to see your name up there, check out the Patreon and see what awesome things you can do to contribute to this awesome community we have going on. So with all that being said, guys, you guys are in my hearts. I think about you all the time. Everybody that shows up in the chat each and every night is very important to me. You guys have a good evening. Next week, let's see if we can check my paperwork. I don't know where it is. I'm sorry, I don't have it within arm's reach. But keep updated on the Necromancer Live Show Facebook page to see who we got coming on the show next week. Until then, stick around. We got some promotions at the end of the show. As always, you have a good evening, and I bid you farewell.